Morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting soft stripes across the cool granite countertop. Ethan Carter stood there, coffee brewing, the thin, curling tendrils of steam rising as he poured in a splash of cream. The gentle clink of his spoon echoed in the stillness. A quiet so profound it used to feel comforting, but now carried an uneasy edge, like the air before a storm. As he stirred, the light caught his wedding band, glinting like a subtle reminder of promises that felt heavier these days. His eyes flicked to the clock. 7:15 a.m. After a decade of marriage, he had memorized the rhythm of mornings with Sophia. It was a predictable routine, as familiar as the creases in his palm. Any moment now, she'd be up, bustling around the house with the kind of high-energy pace she'd adopted recently. Sure enough, he heard the faint creak of the bedroom door upstairs, followed by the sound of her footsteps. But lately something felt off. The dependable rhythm of their life had shifted. Not much, just a little, like a favorite song played a fraction slower than you remember. It wasn't just one thing, either. Sophia's showers ran longer, her makeup application had grown more meticulous, and her sudden focus on her wardrobe felt eerily reminiscent of the effort she put in during their early dating days. It gnawed at Ethan like an itch he couldn't quite reach. Cradling his coffee, he moved to the breakfast nook and opened his laptop, trying to dive into emails. The detailed blueprints for the architecture firm's upcoming presentation should have absorbed his attention, but his mind kept straying to the little changes at home. Right on cue, the crisp sound of heels clicked against the hardwood floor. Sophia appeared in the doorway, poised as ever in a fitted navy pencil skirt and a cream blouse. Her dark hair, perfectly styled, spilled over her shoulders in a way that reminded him of their date nights, back when they still had those. Morning, he greeted her, watching as she glided toward the coffee maker, phone already in hand. Morning, she replied, barely glancing up, her fingers flying across the screen. A faint smile curved her lips, one Ethan hadn't seen directed at him in longer than he cared to admit. Breakfast? I can make eggs, he offered, his tone carrying a flicker of nostalgia for mornings spent planning their day together over scrambled eggs and the newspaper. No time, she said briskly, pouring coffee into a travel mug without even looking up. Big presentation today. The Jason account still needs revisions before the meeting. Ethan nodded, his eyes lingering on her as she brushed past, still avoiding his gaze. Another late night, then? Probably, she muttered, tossing a quick glance his way before heading toward the door. Ethan watched as Sophia dipped a tea bag into her mug, a new ritual she'd adopted recently. Green tea, she said, was better for her skin. Don't wait up for dinner, she tossed over her shoulder. I'll grab something at the office. I could bring you lunch, Ethan offered, testing the waters. There's this new Thai place near your building. For the first time, she looked at him. But the moment was fleeting, her gaze darted away almost instantly. That's sweet, but I've got a working lunch with the team. Maybe another time. Her phone buzzed, cutting through the air between them. The smile that flickered across her face was automatic, instinctive, and it hit Ethan like a gut punch. She shifted slightly, angling the screen away from his line of sight as her fingers danced over the keys. I should go, she said, slipping her phone into her bag. She grabbed her purse and stopped at the hallway mirror. A quick swipe of Ruby Woo lipstick, the one he'd given her last Christmas, and a practiced fluff of her hair, and she was gone. Have a good day, she called, the soft click of the front door sealing Ethan in the silence of an empty house. He sat there, staring at his coffee as it cooled, trying to trace when things had started to shift. It hadn't been sudden, more like a gradual erosion, a shoreline slowly worn down by relentless waves. But now, looking back, the signs were undeniable. The new password on her phone, clothes appearing in her closet with the tags conveniently gone, whispered calls she'd step outside to take. It all added up to a picture Ethan couldn't ignore, no matter how much he wanted to. At work, he struggled to focus. The blueprints for the Harrison project blurred in front of him as the morning replayed in his mind, over and over. Earth to Ethan. Lucas's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. His closest friend and colleague waved a hand in front of his face. You've been staring at that same section forever. What's going on? Ethan blinked and forced a smile, even though it felt like it might crack. Just, thinking about the support beam placement. Lucas raised an eyebrow and leaned on Ethan's desk. Right? Because support beams are super emotional. You sure there's not something else? It's nothing. Ethan shuffled the papers in front of him, a nervous tick that never failed to betray his unease. Just some stuff at home I need to figure out. Lucas held his hands up in surrender. Got it. None of my business. Just saying, I'm here if you need to talk. Thanks. Ethan nodded, grateful for the offer but unwilling to put his suspicions into words. Saying them out loud would make them real, and he wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The day crawled by, each hour tempting Ethan to drive past Sophia's office and see for himself if her working lunch was real. But he resisted, instead throwing himself into the Harrison project with a single-minded focus he hadn't managed all week. By the time he left the office, the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a golden haze over the city. When he got home, the house was still. He stood in the kitchen for a moment, debating, then decided to cook dinner. A simple, quiet distraction. Stopping by the grocery store on his way home, Ethan decided to pick up the ingredients for Sophia's favorite, chicken marsala. Maybe a familiar meal could help bridge the widening gap between them. It was a small act of normalcy in a life that felt anything but. When he got back, the house felt unusually empty, though Sophia was rarely home this early. He moved through the motions of cooking, letting the routine distract him for a while. The scent of wine and garlic filled the kitchen as he pulled the chicken out of the oven, golden and fragrant. That's when he heard her key in the lock. His pulse quickened. She was home earlier than usual. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she entered, pausing, like always, by the hallway mirror. He knew she was checking her reflection again, something she'd been doing a lot lately. Something smells amazing, Sophia said as she walked into the kitchen. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and her hair had that tousled look that made Ethan wonder if it was from the wind or something else. She set her purse on the counter, close enough to keep within reach, casual but calculated. I thought we could have dinner together for a change, Ethan said, keeping his tone light as he plated the food. How was the presentation? It went great, she replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. A nervous tick Ethan recognized all too well. The client loved our initial concepts, so we're moving forward with a full proposal. Glad to hear it. Ethan nodded, carrying the plates to the dining room. Earlier, he'd opened a bottle of red wine and poured her a glass, letting it breathe. Sophia slid into her chair and immediately reached for her phone. Work can wait, Ethan said gently, placing the wine in front of her. When's the last time we actually had dinner together? A flicker of guilt crossed her face as she set the phone down. You're right, she admitted, managing a small smile. This looks wonderful, honey. They began to eat, but the atmosphere was heavy and mechanical. The clink of utensils and the occasional scrape of a knife against the plate were the only sounds breaking the silence. Ethan watched her closely. Her eyes darted to the phone every few moments. Her leg bounced under the table, another telltale sign of her nerves. How's the Johnson account going? He asked, his voice breaking through the quiet. Must be keeping you busy with all these late nights. Sophia looked up, her expression distracted. Yes, she replied, the answer coming too quickly. The client has some really specific demands. Oliver, she hesitated, just for a moment. But the pause was enough to send alarm bells ringing in Ethan's mind. The team has been putting in extra hours to meet their expectations. Right then, her phone lit up on the table. She shifted in her chair, just enough to angle the screen away from him. But not before Ethan caught a flash of the message. His stomach churned as the words seared into his memory. I can't wait to do it again with you in the shower. The room seemed to tilt, and the walls felt like they were closing in. Sophia quickly picked up the phone, her back stiffening as she typed a response. Ethan sat frozen, gripping his fork so tightly it might snap, his appetite suddenly gone. The distance between them wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a chasm, and now he could see exactly how deep it went. Time froze. Ethan's hand felt like lead as he gripped his fork, the weight of it anchoring him to the spot. His ears roared, drowning out every other sound, as those words repeated over and over in his head. Each repetition stabbed a little deeper. Sophia's hand darted out to snatch her phone. She tried to act casual, but her trembling fingers betrayed her. Her face paled, and Ethan knew. He didn't need confirmation, but there it was anyway. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice unervingly calm despite the storm brewing inside him. "Just work stuff," she mumbled, shoving the phone into her pocket as if burying it there could erase the damage. "You know how it is, deadlines, client demands." Ethan forced himself to take another bite of chicken, though it tasted like ash. His mind churned, playing back every suspicious moment from the past few months with sharp, unforgiving clarity. The late nights, the locked phone, the distance. It all clicked now, every piece snapping into place in a puzzle he never wanted to solve. "I should, go over some files for tomorrow," Sophia said suddenly, standing so abruptly her chair screeched against the floor. Her plate, barely touched, sat abandoned. Dinner was great, though. Ethan watched as she retreated to the home office. The urge to confront her boiled in his chest, but something colder and more deliberate held him back. He needed the whole truth. He couldn't just throw accusations without knowing everything. That night, Ethan lay beside her in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun lazy circles above them. Sophia's back was turned to him, her breathing too steady, too controlled to be real sleep. The space between them felt like an abyss. He thought of their wedding day, the way her eyes sparkled with joy as she vowed to love him forever. Now those memories felt distant, tarnished by the shadow of betrayal. By morning, Ethan had made up his mind. He left for work earlier than usual but didn't go to the office. Instead, he parked near Sophia's building and waited. From his car, he watched her arrive, noting how she paused to check her reflection in the glass door before stepping inside. About 20 minutes later, a man he didn't recognize walked up and held the door open for her. His stomach tightened as he watched their interaction. It was too easy, too familiar. They shared a quick exchange, a level of comfort that screamed intimacy, and walked inside together. For the next few days, Ethan quietly observed, piecing together more of the truth. Sophia never left her phone unattended, not even for a second. She carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. But her confidence wasn't flawless, and every now and then, she let her guard down. During one such moment, while she was in the shower, Ethan made his move. His hands shook as he unlocked her phone, grateful she hadn't thought to change her email password. The truth was laid bare in seconds. Messages between Sophia and a man named Oliver Bennett filled her inbox. The exchanges were flirtatious, dripping with innuendo, and referenced meetings that didn't exist on her work calendar. Ethan's stomach churned as he read line after line. The reality of it hit him like a freight train. The woman he'd loved, the woman he'd built his life with, was living a lie. And now he had proof. Ethan's hands trembled as he performed a quick LinkedIn search. Oliver Bennett. His profile popped up with a polished headshot that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Late 30s, carefully styled dark hair, and the title of senior account manager at Sophia's firm. Glowing recommendations filled his page, praising his charm and his knack for connecting with clients. Each detail twisted the knife deeper. At dinner that night, Ethan played along, pretending everything was fine. He asked about her day, nodding as she spun stories about project deadlines and demanding clients. Meanwhile, under the table, he caught her subtly checking her phone. Her lips curled into a faint smile at messages he couldn't see. The final confirmation came unexpectedly. Ethan had stopped for coffee near Sophia's office while on the way to a client meeting. At a table nearby, two women gossiped, their voices just loud enough for him to overhear. "Did you see them at the holiday party?" one whispered. Oliver was practically glued to Sophia. "He's always been a player, right?" The other replied knowingly. "Remember Emma from accounting? Same story, different year. Though I have to say he usually sticks to single women." Ethan's grip on his coffee cup tightened, the cardboard bending under the pressure. He forced himself to remain calm, his breathing steady, as the conversation continued. "Well, you know what they say about the quiet ones," the first woman added with a conspiratorial tone. "Sophia always seemed so straight-laced. But I guess Oliver has a way of bringing out the wild side." The second woman chuckled. "Did you see them at Murphy's last week? Liam and I were there having tea, and they were in the back booth. Let's just say, they weren't exactly talking about the Jason account." Their laughter grated against Ethan's raw nerves, each word carving deeper into his composure. Abruptly, he stood, leaving his half-finished coffee on the table as he walked out into the biting cold. The chill hit his face like a slap, a brief reprieve from the heat of his swirling thoughts. But the women's words refused to leave his head, repeating over and over. That evening, Ethan watched Sophia as she got ready for yet another late meeting. Something inside him shifted. The mess of hurt and disbelief had settled into something colder, sharper, more calculating. Standing in the kitchen doorway, he noticed every detail. The way she applied fresh lipstick in the hallway mirror. How she smoothed her skirt with meticulous care and adjusted her hair like someone preparing to impress, not just work. "Don't wait up," she called over her shoulder, her tone practiced and light. "Lots to review for the Jason account." "Of course," Ethan replied evenly, his voice giving nothing away. "Good luck with the review." The door clicked shut behind her, and Ethan walked to the window. He watched her car pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street, his jaw tightening with resolve. He didn't just suspect anymore. He knew. And now he was ready to act. Ethan waited, watching Sophia's taillights fade around the corner before grabbing his keys. Tonight, he'd decided, he would see for himself exactly what kind of review she was conducting. Following her was easier than he'd expected. She drove to a quaint Italian restaurant on the other side of town, far enough from their home and her office to avoid running into anyone they knew. From the softly lit windows, Ethan had a clear view. He watched as she greeted Oliver with a kiss, one that left no room for ambiguity. They slid into a booth together, leaning in close, sharing a bottle of wine. Laughter bubbled between them, easy and carefree, like the rest of the world didn't exist. Ethan stayed in his car, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He studied every detail. The way Oliver's hand rested on Sophia's across the table. How they smiled at each other with a familiarity that cut deep. This wasn't a fling. It was something far more insidious, an affair steeped in comfort and routine. The following week blurred by in a haze of careful observation and bitter revelations. Ethan tracked their patterns, their meeting spots, the lies Sophia told to explain her absences. He saw her morph into a version of herself he didn't recognize, laughing and flirting with a vibrancy she hadn't shown him in years. Each night, as she lay beside him in bed, Ethan refined his plan. The raw fury he'd felt had cooled into something sharper and more deliberate. He didn't want to confront her in a fit of rage or storm out in dramatic fashion. That would be too simple, too easy for them to dismiss. No, he wanted both of them to feel the full weight of their betrayal, to understand what they had destroyed. One evening, as Sophia showered, Ethan's eyes fell on her phone, carelessly left on the kitchen counter. Her confidence in maintaining this double life had made her reckless. When the screen lit up with a new notification, Ethan seized the opportunity. The message was from Oliver. It was about their next meeting. Ethan's jaw tightened as he picked up the phone. He'd already decided tonight wasn't the time for confrontation. Not yet. He needed more leverage, more control. Calmly, he memorized Oliver's number, then set the phone back exactly where she'd left it. Upstairs, the shower continued to run. Ethan stood by the living room window, staring out at the quiet street. The peaceful scene outside was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. Later that night, lying in bed beside Sophia, Ethan stared at the ceiling. Her breathing was slow and steady, but he knew she wasn't really asleep. The space between them felt immense, a chasm that couldn't be crossed. He thought about their life together, the trust they had once shared, the dreams they'd built, the promises they'd made. Now it was all in pieces. His resolve hardened. This wasn't over. Not yet. But when the time came, he'd be ready. Ethan vowed to make them pay, not with reckless rage, but with a calculated precision that would leave them utterly shattered. The next day, he began setting the trap. His home office transformed into a war room of evidence. Photographs of Sophia and Oliver outside restaurants and hotels. Screenshots of messages he'd managed to capture. Notes meticulously detailing dates, times, and places. They painted a damning portrait of her betrayal. In the middle of it all, Oliver's phone number, scribbled on a sticky note, taunted him with its mere existence. That afternoon, Sophia's phone buzzed again, lying unattended on the counter. Ethan picked it up, his face unreadable as he opened the messages. Slowly, deliberately, he began to type, mimicking her tone with unsettling ease. I need to see you tonight. Ethan's working late on the Harrison project. Come to the house. Don't want to wait for our usual spot. The reply came almost immediately, twisting his stomach into knots. Dangerous. Your place? What's gotten into you? Ethan's fingers moved with controlled precision as he typed back. Miss you too much. Door will be unlocked. Let yourself in. Want you at my house for once. Oliver's response landed like a punch. Oh, babe. I like this side of you. See you at 8. Can't wait to feel your hands on me. Ethan deleted the conversation and replaced the phone exactly as he'd found it. Glancing at the clock, 2 p.m., he calculated that he had 6 hours to prepare. In his office, he picked up his phone and dialed Lucas. I need you to do me a favor, Ethan said, his voice level and calm. What's up? Lucas asked, the faint rustle of blueprints in the background. If anyone asks, I'm working late on the Harrison project tonight. A pause. Why, man? What's going on? You've been off lately. Just an alibi, Ethan said firmly. Can you handle that? Lucas hesitated, then relented. Yeah, of course. But seriously, if you need to talk. I don't, Ethan interrupted, his tone leaving no room for debate. Just cover for me. When the call ended, Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. The pieces were falling into place. Tonight, Sophia and Oliver would learn their secret wasn't as safe as they thought. Tonight, they would see exactly what betrayal cost. The hours ticked by as Ethan prepared meticulously. He rearranged the furniture just enough to ensure clear pathways through the room. He double-checked the security cameras he'd installed the week before, confirming they captured every angle perfectly. This wasn't just about confrontation. It was about documentation, evidence if it came to that. At 6, Sophia arrived home. She breezed through the kitchen with nervous energy, her gaze flicking to her phone every few minutes. Ethan leaned casually against the doorway, watching silently as she adjusted her hair in the hallway mirror and smoothed her skirt. She was trying too hard, and it showed. Everything okay? He asked, his tone light but loaded. Yeah, just lots on my mind, she replied, not meeting his eyes. Ethan nodded, stepping aside as she headed upstairs. He didn't follow, but the tightening of his jaw betrayed the storm brewing inside him. By the time she left for her late meeting with Oliver, everything was in place. Ethan's trap was set, and the clock was ticking. Sophia stood at the counter, her makeup freshly touched up from work. She poured herself a glass of water, her movements deliberately casual. I might go to the gym later, she said, avoiding his gaze. Ethan didn't flinch. The Harrison project needs my attention, he replied evenly, his tone giving away nothing. I'll probably be at the office late. Don't wait up. A flicker of relief crossed her face, barely concealed. Okay. Good luck with the project, she said, her voice a little too light. Underneath the table, her fingers flew across her phone screen. Ethan didn't need to see the message to know exactly what she was typing. Coast is clear. Still on for tonight. His hands tensed briefly before he forced them to relax. There's leftover chicken in the fridge if you want it, he added, his voice calm, the facade of normalcy intact. Thanks, honey, Sophia replied, giving him a fleeting smile. For a split second, guilt crossed her features, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She shut the refrigerator door harder than necessary, the sound echoing in the kitchen as she turned away. At 7 o'clock, Ethan made a point of gathering his work materials, stuffing blank papers into his briefcase. He kissed her cheek lightly, feeling the subtle tension in her posture as she braced herself against the contact. "Don't work too hard at the gym," he said. "I won't," she replied quickly, already reaching for her phone. Ethan walked out the door but didn't head to the office. Instead, he parked his car a block away, hidden behind a dense hedge. At 7:45, he saw Sophia's car pull out of the driveway. She wasn't heading to the gym. Ethan had followed her enough times to know her real route. Tonight, like so many nights before, she was going to the wine bar 3 blocks from Oliver's apartment, their usual rendezvous point before heading to his place. By 7:55, Ethan was back inside his house, waiting in the darkened living room. The security cameras blinked steadily, their small red lights a silent witness to the night's events. He had envisioned this confrontation 1,000 times. Violence had crossed his mind, a visceral, primal urge to make Oliver feel the same pain he had endured. But that was too simple, too fleeting. No, this had to be about consequences, about making them understand. At precisely 8 o'clock, the front door clicked open. Confident footsteps echoed down the hallway, unhurried and self-assured. Ethan recognized the sound of expensive leather soles on hardwood, Italian, he guessed, based on his careful observations of Oliver's wardrobe. The steps paused briefly by the staircase, then continued toward the living room. Ethan waited until Oliver was fully in the doorway, then reached over and flicked on the light. The sudden brightness froze Oliver in place, his hand halfway raised to adjust his tie. He was younger in person, early 30s, with the polished, gym-sculpted look of someone who treated appearance as a priority. His carefully cultivated confidence shattered for a split second as his eyes locked on Ethan. "Oliver," Ethan said, his voice low and cold, cutting through the silence like a blade. The room seemed to hold its breath. The trap had sprung, and now there was no escape. The confidence drained from Oliver's face the moment his eyes locked on Ethan. Reality came crashing down, shattering whatever fantasy he'd been entertaining. "You must be Oliver," Ethan said, his voice dangerously calm. "I think we need to have a talk about your relationship with my wife. There's been a misunderstanding," Oliver stammered, taking a half-step back toward the hallway. His eyes darted between Ethan and the front door, calculating his chances. Ethan rose slowly from the couch, his 6 feet 2 inches frame towering over Oliver's leaner build. "No misunderstanding," he said coldly. "Sit down." "Look, man," I said, "sit." Each word was laced with barely contained violence, leaving no room for debate. Oliver sank into the armchair, his bravado evaporating. "Listen, I don't want any trouble," he said, his tone shifting to appeasement. "This is clearly a sensitive situation." "Sensitive?" Ethan laughed, the sound hollow and humorless. "Trouble was walking into my house thinking you'd spend time with my wife under my roof. Trouble was sending her texts about showers while I sat across from her at dinner." Ethan stepped closer, his presence suffocating. This isn't trouble. This is consequences." "She said you two were having problems," Oliver muttered, his eyes flickering toward the door again. "She said the marriage was basically over. And you believed her?" Ethan leaned in, his tone colder than ever. "Or did you just not care? How many married women have you gone after, Oliver? Because from what I hear around the office, I'm not the first husband you've disrespected." Oliver paled. "Who told you that? Emma from accounting? Or maybe one of the others?" Ethan replied, a sharp, cutting smile curling his lips. "Word gets around, doesn't it? The charming account manager who preys on vulnerable women. Tell me, do you have a system? Or do you just toss out lines until someone bites?" "This is insane," Oliver said, standing abruptly, his fear bleeding into his carefully practiced charm. "I'm leaving." Ethan's hand shot out, gripping Oliver's shoulder with bruising force. "Not yet." With one shove, Oliver was forced back into the chair. The frame creaked under the weight of Ethan's raw anger. "You're going to sit there and listen," Ethan growled, Listen to exactly what kind of man you are. Get your hands off me. Oliver snarled, struggling to stand, but Ethan's grip only tightened. I said listen. With another shove, the chair groaned under the force, and Oliver flinched. You walked into my house, into my life, thinking there'd be no consequences. Stops now. Oliver made another attempt to rise, but this time, Ethan's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling over the coffee table. He landed hard, the sound of shattering glass echoing in the room. A thin trail of blood trickled from his split lip as he stared up at Ethan, his eyes now filled with unfiltered fear. I've done my research, Ethan said, his voice eerily steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. 3 affairs with married women. 3 husbands who had to clean up the mess you left behind. You think you're untouchable? Oliver wiped the blood from his lip, his hands trembling. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I know exactly who you are. Ethan's glare bore into him, unrelenting. You're the guy who wrecks lives because it's fun. Because you think you can. Oliver didn't respond, his breath coming in shallow gasps as Ethan loomed over him. This ends tonight, Ethan said. One way or another, you're going to understand what it feels like to face the wreckage you've caused. Oliver swallowed hard, his polished facade finally and completely shattered. The past 2 years, Ethan said, his voice calm but razor-sharp. HR complaints that conveniently disappeared. You're not just a homewrecker, Oliver. You're a predator. You don't know anything, Oliver spat, struggling to his feet. His confidence now fractured but not entirely gone. I know everything, Ethan replied, his tone deadly as he pulled out his phone. He held it up, scrolling through screenshots of emails, texts, and photos. Every meeting, every hotel, every lie. One email to HR about you spending extra time with a married coworker, and your career? Gone. How many companies want to keep someone like you on the payroll? Oliver's face turned pale, blood still dripping from his lip. What do you want? His voice trembled, the fight draining out of him. Ethan crouched, locking eyes with him. I want you to understand your place in this. You're not her savior. You're not her escape. You're just a convenient, disposable tool. A selfish opportunist who doesn't care about the destruction you leave behind. Oliver's breathing quickened, his chest heaving as Ethan leaned closer. Here's what's going to happen, Ethan said, his voice cold and precise. You're going to disappear from her life. No goodbyes. No explanations. You'll block her number, avoid her at work, and if she tries to contact you, you'll remember this moment. You're insane, Oliver hissed, wiping at the blood smeared across his face. Ethan didn't flinch. His fist connected with Oliver's jaw again, the force knocking him back onto the floor. I'm better than insane, Ethan growled. I'm just done playing nice. Grabbing Oliver by the collar, Ethan hauled him to his feet, the expensive fabric tearing under the strain. Do we understand each other? Oliver nodded frantically, his shirt stained red. Why yeah, I understand. It's over. I'll stay away. Good. Ethan released him, watching as Oliver stumbled toward the door, his steps shaky and uneven. Ethan called after him, his voice icy and measured. And Oliver, if I ever see you near my wife again, this conversation won't be so civilized. Oliver didn't look back. He slammed the door behind him, and through the window, Ethan watched him sprint to his car. He fumbled with the keys, trembling, before peeling out onto the street in a panic. The house fell silent once more. Ethan took a moment to survey the room. A few drops of blood dotted the hardwood floor, and the coffee table was slightly out of place. With deliberate precision, he cleaned up every trace of the confrontation, wiping the floor and straightening the furniture. The security cameras, their red lights blinking steadily, captured everything. Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Oliver. I won't say anything about tonight. Stay away from me. Ethan allowed himself a grim smile as he deleted the message. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the harder conversation. At 9:15, headlights swept across the windows, casting faint streaks of light into the living room. Ethan sat in his armchair, a glass of whiskey in hand, waiting. The front door opened, and Sophia stepped inside. She froze when she saw him sitting there, the surprise flashing across her face. "Ethan," she said, her voice pitching higher than usual. "I thought you were at the office working on the Harrison project." "Sit down, Sophia," Ethan said, his voice calm but commanding. She hesitated, her hand tightening on her purse. "Is everything okay?" "Sit down," Ethan repeated, each word firm and deliberate. Her mask of casual composure faltered as she crossed the room. She set her purse on the counter and lowered herself into the chair across from him. Ethan took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes never leaving hers. "Now," he began, his tone devoid of warmth. "We need to talk." Ethan's voice was quiet but steely, the authority in his tone leaving no room for argument. "Sit down, Sophia." She hesitated but obeyed, lowering herself into the chair with slow, uncertain movements. "We need to talk about Oliver." The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." Ethan's words cut through hers, his hand tightening around his glass. "Don't insult me by lying." "Not anymore. Ethan, please. I can explain everything." "Explain what?" he snapped, standing abruptly. "The late nights? The so-called gym sessions that somehow left your hair perfectly styled? Or maybe the text about a shower sent while we sat at dinner together." He pulled out his phone and held it up, the evidence glowing on the screen. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. "It wasn't. I never meant to get caught," Ethan finished for her, his voice razor sharp. "That's the only thing you're sorry about, isn't it? That your perfect little affair got exposed." "No, it's not like that." Sophia stood, reaching for him, her voice trembling. "I love you, Ethan. It was a mistake. Please," she sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks. "We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," Ethan said coldly, looming over her. "Your lover just left here with a bloody lip and a new understanding of consequences. He won't be waiting for you anymore." Her eyes widened in shock. "What did you do? What needed to be done?" Ethan turned toward the stairs, pausing at the bottom. "Pack your things. I want you out of this house tonight." "Ethan, please. Where am I supposed to go?" she begged, desperation creeping into her voice. He turned back to her, his gaze icy. "Not my problem. You made this choice, Sophia. Now live with it." Her expression shifted, her voice sharpening. "I'll tell everyone what you did to Oliver. I'll go to the police." Ethan laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Go ahead. Tell them how your married lover showed up at my house to spend time with my wife. Let me know how that goes over at work. Oh, and don't forget, I've recorded everything, Sophia. Everything." Her shoulders sagged, and she collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice broken. "I'm so sorry." "No," Ethan said quietly, his tone like ice. "You're sorry you got caught. Sorry your comfortable life is falling apart. But you're not sorry for what you did." Without another word, he turned and climbed the stairs. "Pack your bag. When I come back down, I want you gone." In the bedroom, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the sounds below. Drawers opening and closing, hangers scraping against the rod, her muffled sobs cutting through the silence. His phone buzzed. A message from Lucas, asking if everything was okay. Ethan ignored it, focusing instead on the task at hand. An hour later, the front door closed softly. Ethan descended the stairs, finding the house eerily quiet, yet somehow lighter. On the coffee table, Sophia had left her key. He stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space where her presence had loomed for so long. The weight of betrayal still lingered, but for the first time in months, the air felt breathable again. He picked up her key, placed it in a drawer, and poured himself another drink. There was no going back now. Ethan pocketed the key without reading the note Sophia had left alongside it. Whatever justifications or pleas she had scrawled meant nothing to him now. His phone buzzed again. "Please don't do this. We can talk. I'll do anything." Another message followed. I love you, Ethan. And then another. Where am I supposed to go? My life is here. Ethan stared at the messages for a moment, his face impassive. Then, with a few taps, he blocked her number and deleted the messages without replying. He poured himself another glass of whiskey and sat in the now quiet house. For the first time in weeks, he felt a faint stir of peace. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. But a deep, steady satisfaction that he had dealt with the betrayal decisively. Later that night, he would call a lawyer. Tonight, though, he savored the stillness, knowing the house, free of her presence, felt cleaner, like a wound freshly stitched. Painful but necessary. His phone buzzed one last time. You've made your point. I'm done with all of this. She's your problem now. It was from an unknown number, but Ethan didn't need to guess. Oliver, probably using a different phone. Ethan smirked grimly as he blocked the number 2. No, he thought. She's her own problem now. The next morning dawned cold and gray, perfectly mirroring Ethan's mood. He sat at the kitchen counter, staring at a business card in his hand. James Walker, divorce attorney. He'd kept the card in his wallet for weeks, knowing this moment was inevitable. His phone screen lit up with a cascade of notifications. 15 missed calls from Sophia's blocked number. 3 from unknown numbers. A string of increasingly desperate texts. Ethan didn't bother reading them all. Scrolling through the messages, his expression remained detached. Please talk to me. I can explain everything. Where am I supposed to go? You can't just throw away 10 years. Another message popped up from an unknown number. My fiancé left me because of you. Thanks for ruining my life. Oliver. Ethan's lips curled into a cold smile. He typed a single response. You ruined your own life. Be grateful that's all you lost. He hit send and immediately blocked the number. At 9:47 a.m., the doorbell rang. Ethan glanced at the security camera feed on his phone. Sophia was pacing on the porch, looking utterly broken. Her makeup was streaked from crying, her clothes wrinkled from the night before, and her once pristine hair hung limp and disheveled. Ethan, her voice cracked, faint but audible through the door. I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk about this. Like adults. Ethan remained silent, watching as she pressed her forehead against the door, her body sagging under the weight of desperation. I have nowhere else to go, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Oliver won't answer my calls. She trailed off, choking on the words. Ethan's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable as he watched her crumble through the camera. My credit cards aren't working, Sophia said, her voice rising in panic. I tried to get a hotel room, but our joint accounts are frozen. Ethan cut her off, his tone icy and controlled as he spoke through the door. Lawyer's recommendation. You can't do this to me, she snapped, her desperation giving way to anger. I helped build this life too. Everything we have. Everything we had, Ethan corrected, his voice like a blade. At least let me in so we can talk properly, she begged, pounding her fist against the door. This is still my house too. Ethan opened the door abruptly, causing her to stumble back. His expression was cold, impassive. Actually, it's not, he said, his words measured. My name is on the deed. I bought it before we were married. But I'm guessing you didn't read the prenup that carefully. Did you? Up close, Sophia looked even worse. Mascara streaked her red-rimmed eyes, and her rumpled suit bore the signs of a sleepless night, probably spent in her car. She clutched a designer purse, its pristine leather a sharp contrast to her disheveled state. A purse that likely cost more than most people's rent. But it wouldn't help her now. Can I just come in? She pleaded, her tone softening into the coaxing voice she always used when she wanted something. Please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No, Ethan's stance didn't budge, his broad frame filling the doorway. But I'll give you 5 minutes right here. Consider it more than you deserve. Her shoulders sagged as she wrung her hands nervously. I made a horrible mistake, she began, her voice trembling. Oliver didn't mean anything. It was stupid and selfish, and I know that now. But 10 years of marriage, 10 years of what? Ethan interrupted, his voice calm and unsettling. 10 years of me building a life while you built a relationship with your coworker? It wasn't like that, she insisted quickly. Things between us had gotten distant. Oliver was just... He made me feel... Don't... The single word cut through her excuses like a knife. I don't care why you did it. I don't care how he made you feel. I care that you did it. And that you looked me in the eye every day and lied. We can fix this, she cried, her desperation turning sharp. People overcome affairs all the time, with counseling, with... You know what I find interesting? Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his gaze piercing. You're more upset about losing your comfortable life than losing me. That's not true, she protested, tears streaming down her cheeks. I love you. No, you don't. His voice was steady, brutally honest. You love what I provided, the house, the lifestyle, the stability. Tell me something, Sophia. How long would it have gone on if I hadn't caught you? She flinched, her guilt written all over her face. 6 months, Ethan answered for her, his tone hard. I have every receipt, every hotel bill, every restaurant charge, every lie. Her lips trembled, but she didn't deny it. She couldn't. The weight of her choices hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Did you think I wouldn't notice the joint account being drained for your little rendezvous? Ethan's voice was cold, each word sharp as glass. You were watching me? Sophia's cheeks flushed with anger, her tone shifting from pleading to defensive. How dare you spy on me? How dare I? Ethan let out a harsh laugh, the sound chilling. You're standing here begging to come back into my house after I caught you spending time with your lover in my bedroom, and you're upset about your privacy being invaded? People make mistakes, she said, stepping closer, her tone softening again. Haven't you ever made a mistake? A mistake. Ethan's eyes narrowed, his voice unyielding. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, burning dinner, cheating on your husband for 6 months? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. A series of deliberate, calculated choices you made every single time you met him. We could go to counseling, she cried, her voice trembling. Work through this. Learn to trust again. Build something stronger. There is no we anymore, Sophia. Ethan pulled an envelope from his back pocket, holding it out to her. These are divorce papers. My lawyer will contact yours. I don't have a lawyer, she whispered, fresh tears streaming down her face. I don't have anything. You've frozen all our accounts. Joint accounts, Ethan corrected. Your personal account is still active. Oh wait, his eyes darkened. That's right. You spent most of it on hotels and lingerie for Oliver, didn't you? Her hand flew up to slap him, but Ethan caught her wrist with ease. His grip was firm but not painful, his tone deadly calm. Don't, he said quietly, holding her wrist until her arm fell back to her side. You lost the right to touch me the moment you let him touch you. Her shoulders slumped in defeat, her voice barely a whisper. What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem, Ethan replied, releasing her wrist. You're a college-educated professional, Sophia. Figure it out. My parents will never forgive me, she said, her voice breaking. They already know. Ethan's smile was icy, cutting. I called them last night, told them everything. Her eyes widened in horror. You didn't. I did, he confirmed, his tone matter-of-fact. Your mother cried. Your father asked if the prenup was still valid. He seemed relieved when I told him it was. Sophia staggered back, as if the words had physically struck her. You ruined everything, she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. No, Sophia. Ethan stepped closer, holding the envelope out again. You did that. Take the papers. Read them. Sign them. The faster you do, the faster this ends. Her face twisted in fury and despair as she snatched the envelope from his hand. Her grip so tight, the papers crumpled. You won't win, she hissed, but her voice lacked conviction. Ethan stared at her, his expression calm, his voice steady. I already have. Sophia snatched the envelope from Ethan's hand, her face a mix of defiance and desperation. I could fight this, she said, her voice rising. I'll get my own lawyer. With what money? Ethan leaned back against the doorframe, his expression calm, almost bored. The prenup is very clear about infidelity. You get what you brought in minus joint assets acquired during the marriage. Considering your shopping habits, that's not much. I helped you build your career, she snapped, her anger bubbling over. All those client dinners, the networking events. I was there for all of it, and while I was building our future, Ethan said, his voice sharp and cutting, you were busy tearing apart our present. He glanced at his watch, his indifference stinging more than any shout could. Your 5 minutes are up. Go find a lawyer, Sophia. The next time we talk, it'll be through them. Wait, she cried, grabbing the edge of the door as he began to close it. What about my things? My clothes? They're in garbage bags in the garage, Ethan replied evenly, along with all the lingerie receipts I found. Funny how your taste in underwear improved when you had someone else to show it to. You're being cruel, she whispered, her voice trembling with fresh tears. No, he said, his tone firm, his expression unyielding. I'm being honest. Something you might want to try for a change. With deliberate care, he pried her hand off the door. The garage will be open until noon. After that, anything left goes to Goodwill. I have nothing, she choked out, tears streaking her face. You have exactly what you chose, Ethan said coldly, shutting the door firmly. The lock clicked with finality. Through the security camera feed, he watched her linger on the porch, staring at the divorce papers in her hands. Eventually, she shuffled to her car, the leased luxury vehicle that Ethan had already arranged to be repossessed the following day. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Sophia attempted to contact Ethan twice more, even showing up at his office one day. The scene she caused was nothing short of dramatic. She screamed at security as they escorted her out, her voice echoing through the building and fueling office gossip for weeks. You can't just throw me away, she shouted. 10 years. Don't I deserve a second chance? Ethan ignored the whispers from his co-workers. Let them talk. He had nothing to be ashamed of. At their legal meetings, Sophia's lawyer, a sharply dressed woman in suits far beyond Sophia's current budget, tried to argue against the prenup. My client contributed significantly to this marriage, she said, gesturing across the table. The house value has doubled. The investment portfolio. Your client violated the fidelity clause, Ethan's lawyer interrupted smoothly, sliding a stack of receipts, photos, and messages across the table. Section 3, paragraph 2 is explicit about the consequences. These photos were obtained without her consent, Sophia's lawyer countered, her voice clipped. In public places, Ethan's lawyer shot back without missing a beat. Perfectly legal. Sophia squirmed in her chair, her face a storm of humiliation and frustration. Ethan didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself, and no amount of pleading could rewrite the facts. By the end of the meeting, the reality was unavoidable. The prenup was ironclad. Ethan would walk away with everything he'd built, and Sophia would leave with exactly what she brought in. Her tears, her shouting, and her lawyer's sharp words couldn't change one simple truth. Sophia had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. There's no expectation of privacy in a hotel lobby or restaurant, Ethan's lawyer said, his voice as sharp as the stack of papers on the table. And the credit card statements? Completely admissible. The negotiations ended in less than 20 minutes. Sophia left the room with only her personal belongings, the car loan transferred fully into her name, and a settlement so pitiful it wouldn't cover 3 months' rent in a decent apartment. Her face was pale, her jaw tight, but she said nothing as she walked out. A month after the divorce was finalized, word spread at Ethan's office. Oliver had quit. He'd gone back to Boston, scrambling to salvage his engagement, but it was too late. It didn't take long for the fallout to catch up with him. The last anyone heard, he'd taken a low-paying job at a smaller firm, his career derailed. A rising star brought down by his own hubris. Sophia wasn't faring much better. She'd taken a lesser role at a smaller company, far removed from her former life. But she wasn't done trying to claw her way back into Ethan's. She reached out through mutual friends, sending carefully crafted messages about regret and personal growth. Ethan deleted every message without reading. He blocked every new number she used, erasing her attempts to re-enter his life as easily as he had erased her from his future. "She seems really sorry," his sister Sarah said over coffee one morning, her tone soft. "Maybe." "No," Ethan cut her off. His tone was sharp, unyielding. "Sorry doesn't fix betrayal." 6 weeks after the divorce, Sophia made one last desperate attempt. Ethan found her sitting on his porch steps, her figure slumped and frail, her eyes hollow. The confident, polished woman she once was had been replaced by someone desperate, broken. "Just hear me out," she said as he approached, her voice barely above a whisper. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Ethan's face was unreadable, his tone ice-cold. "I already gave you 5. He moved a step past her. "I've lost everything," she said, her voice breaking, tears sliding down her cheeks. "My job, my life, my dignity. Oliver never cared about me. He just moved on to the next willing woman." "You didn't lose anything," Ethan said, finally turning to face her. "You threw it away. There's a difference." Her voice cracked as she pleaded, "Can we just talk? Please? All these years together, they have to mean something to you." Ethan unlocked his door, but paused, glancing back at her. "The woman I married?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "She never existed. She was just a role you played until something more exciting came along." "That's not true," she cried, her voice rising as she reached out and grabbed his arm. "I loved you." Ethan's expression hardened. "You have a funny way of showing it." He calmly removed her hand from his arm, his grip firm. "Go home, Sophia. Whatever's left of it." Her voice turned bitter, the tears replaced by anger. "I have an apartment share. 2 roommates. My portion of the rent is more than I can afford on my salary." "Is that what you wanted to hear? That I'm struggling?" "I don't want to hear anything from you," Ethan said firmly, his voice cutting like a knife. "That's the point you keep missing." Her composure cracked. "You've punished me enough," she shouted, her words trembling with desperation. "I get it. Okay? I screwed up. I lost everything. Isn't that enough?" Ethan stepped into the doorway, his voice calm but cold, unrelenting. "This isn't about punishment, Sophia. It's about consequences. You made choices, deliberate adult choices. Now you're living with adult consequences." Her shoulders sagged, her last shred of resolve crumbling. She whispered, "So that's it." "That's it," Ethan said, shutting the door firmly behind him. Through the peephole, he watched as she stood there for a moment, her body shaking with quiet sobs. Then, defeated, she walked to her car. A car Ethan knew would be repossessed the next day. He leaned against the door, exhaling deeply. There was no satisfaction, no triumph, just the cold finality of knowing it was over. Finally, 10 years, she asked, her voice cracking, tears streaming down her face. "They meant nothing to you?" Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "They meant everything," he said, his voice low but resolute. "That's why there's no coming back from this. Goodbye, Sophia." He stepped inside and closed the door with a firm, deliberate click. The sound echoed like a verdict. Through the window, he watched her, shoulders shaking as sobs racked her body. She lingered for a moment, clutching the divorce papers like they could undo everything. Then, finally, she turned and walked away, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Inside, Ethan poured himself a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the faint glow of the kitchen light. He sank into his chair, staring at the empty room. The house felt different. Still hollow, still raw, but no longer burdened by the weight of betrayal. It was quiet, not oppressive but cleansing. His phone buzzed on the table. A message from Lucas. "Drinks tonight? You've been hibernating too long." Ethan stared at the screen for a moment before typing a reply. "Give me 30 minutes." He glanced around the room. The furniture had been rearranged. The security cameras, once silently watching over every corner of his life, were gone. Their memory cards locked away with his lawyer. The house, once a monument to lies and deceit, was beginning to feel like something else. A blank slate. Ethan knew he had lost more than just a wife and a marriage. He'd lost the innocence of trust, the belief that love could endure anything. Those wounds would take time to heal if they ever did. But he had gained something more important. An unshakable resolve. A refusal to accept betrayal. And the knowledge that he could rebuild, no matter the destruction left in someone else's wake. Before leaving, his phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. Sophia. He didn't need to open it to know what it said. He didn't care. With steady hands, he deleted the message and blocked the number. It wasn't anger that drove the action, it was finality. This chapter was closed. Grabbing his keys, Ethan stepped outside. The night air was cool and sharp, carrying the faint smell of rain. He took a deep breath and walked to his car, heading to meet Lucas. Behind him, the house stood still, quiet and empty. Its walls, once scarred by deception, were becoming something else. A foundation for whatever came next. Ethan didn't know what the future held. He didn't need to, but one thing was certain. No one would ever make him question his worth again.